Tonight on the Daily Debrief, a guilty plea in the killing of an NBA player. Also,
I only remember him saying he didn't have anything to do with it.
brother accuses brother of murdering the rest of the family over an obsession with a Bulgarian webcam girl. And roommates say a Florida woman asked them to lie about her whereabouts.
She had said that she wanted me to say that she had moved in the day before.
Now she's being tried for killing her mother and stepfather.
I didn't believe that would be her.
Plus,
it takes 3 attorneys to combat the lies of these defendants.
Closing arguments in the death of a foster child. Is it accident or murder? The Daily Debrief recaps the day in court. It's Friday, July 26.
Welcome to the Debrief, everybody. Glad you're with us. A guilty plea in the killing of NBA player Lorenzen Wrights' ex-wife, Shara Wright, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and facilitation of a criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder. Her sentence is 30 years in prison, but she becomes eligible for parole after 9 years. WHBQ TV in Memphis reports that the defense was prepared to argue that Lorenzen Wright beat his wife, and that's why she killed him. Lorenzen's mother, however, said she did not believe that story because Shara was injured after Lorenzen was shot and killed. So, attorneys Norman Williams and Michael Bryant are here off the top of the broadcast to discuss this case. My local contacts, Michael, are telling me that it's unlikely the parole board would even listen to this case until she served half of her sentence, even though she's eligible after, 9 years, I said?
30%, I think it is.
Yeah,
yes.
Something like that. So, is it fair ultimately to say, okay, these are serious charges, a possibility after just a few short years, but more likely it'll be longer?
Yeah, I think when the parole board has the control that they have, and they certainly have their own guidelines, but nobody says you get out of jail free after 30%. That's just the first time they can look at it. So the parole board knows what's going on. They know what happened in this case. They know the plea. I think they're going to do their job.
Norman, the tricky legal question is for you. Okay, so the defendant says she will not testify against the other defendant because remember, 2 people are accused in this case. But Memphis is tricky. A lot of times they don't do these formal agreements with defendants to testify against one another. So even though Shara says, no, I'm not going to testify against the other person, what if she's sitting there a couple months from now saying, if I testify, maybe the parole board will look favorably upon me when that 9 years does come around. Is that possible?
That is possible. That is possible. I think a lot of times prosecutors don't make a promise to a cooperating defendant, co-defendant, because they don't want the co-defendant's attorney to tear them apart, that you're only doing this to benefit yourself, that you're only testifying against your co because you're snitching, you're thinking about your own time. But I do think that the parole board will look upon that favorably. I mean, parole board is stuck with public opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big if, because, Michael, if she holds to her word, the state won't have her testimony, and we have another trial coming up in just a couple of months in this case.
Yeah, and so now you're relitigating the things you thought you maybe were going to get away with just in one fell swoop. But no, that's not going to happen. What have you saved? What's the judicial economy then, right?
Yeah, we'll have to follow this one, of course, a sad, sad case, another trial coming up in a couple of months, as I said. Closing arguments, meanwhile, in the trial of a Georgia husband and wife accused of murdering their 2-year-old foster child. Joseph and Jennifer Rosenbaum face different degrees of murder and other charges over the death of Layla Marie Daniel. The defendants say the little girl died after accidentally choking on a piece of chicken and that she was further injured during CPR. The state says Layla likely died after a seizure, which was probably triggered by abuse at the hands of those 2 defendants. So let's begin our review of the closing arguments in this case with this from the defense.
These are shortcuts to conviction because that's what they want you to do. They want you to convict regardless of the evidence, regardless of the fact that people have lied, that people have misstated. In a few minutes, I'm going to be handing over Jennifer and Joseph's lives to you. And don't sell them down the river to the first merchant that comes along. Brings you pretty pictures and says these are injuries when they could very well be as a result of CPR or Heimlich. Again, nobody rebutted Dr. Sperry. Nobody rebutted Dr. Sperry. they're in your hands. Thank you.
The prosecution's rebuttal involved a fiery reaction of why the defendants faced 49 total counts.
What I don't do is I don't let you slide. You're going to be held accountable for each and everything that you did to those children. I'm not going to let you slide like Defects has let you slide, like your husband has let you slide, like the system has allowed you to slide. You will be held accountable for each injury that you inflicted on these children. 49 is too many. But that's why we're here. Due process. They're getting their trial. They're having their day. And I believe in wholeheartedly. Because it requires for you, like-minded people, reasonable people with common sense to make a decision on their guilt or innocence. Let me tell you why we got 3 attorneys, ladies and gentlemen, because it takes 3 attorneys to combat the lies of these defendants. If you notice, we each took a part. Ms. Andrews helped Millie so you can understand what she was going through. Mr. Tracy was much smarter than me. He took those medical doctors because he understands it. And I take the lay witnesses because I know when I see a liar.
She says she knows it when she sees it. Okay, let's go back to the panel on this one. Norman Williams, your assessment of the tactics there. I like to watch a good fiery argument. The question is, does it work?
It works. It depends on where you are, what your juries, what the community's leanings are. You know, I think in Florida, in the South, where a lot of people who go to church, they're listening to her and they're thinking about listening to a Sunday sermon.
A strong one at that,
strong
too.
one.
Okay, you know, not just a simple one, go in peace, but beware the temptations of the devil. You know, that's kind of
right.
what I'm hearing here out of this. Michael Bryant, you know, I know the lies when I see them. Was there some pandering in there, or was that appropriate?
Well, there was some moments you could have objected, and defense finally did toward the end. We're not sure the substance of the objection, but yeah, certainly you can't get personal. You can't go off the rails quite as much as she did. Her fire and brimstone got a little out of control at times.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes attorneys do that because they fear they are losing and they want to try to push the argument just that much further across the line, and sometimes it doesn't work. Norman, let's summarize this case this way. The experts are basically saying this was abuse, that this little girl died because of abuse. The firsthand witnesses are almost unanimous, saying everything was fine. We really didn't see anything that set us off. So who does the jury believe?
I think they're going to believe the expert. They're going to believe the forensic pathologist. And I think that her demeanor on the stand was great. And she sounded like she is a good employee. She follows procedure. She is very well educated. She has a diverse skill set. You know, I think that the jury is really going to listen to her.
And Michael Bryant, just to wrap this one up, we've got different explanations of what went on. The thing that rang the bell to me that made the most sense is this theory that the child wasn't choking, but was having a seizure. And so all of the life-saving efforts were basically in vain, that the defendants didn't recognize what was actually going on, and you know, the butter knife down the throat to try to act as a tongue depressor, some of these bizarre things were basically pointless. That if it was a seizure, the thing that needed to be done was the 911 call immediately.
Right. It seems to me the panic set in, again, according to the evidence as I see it, that followed some beating, and that after maybe the child started to bleed out and seize, then the choking on chicken scenario evolved, and Jennifer Rosenbaum tried to meet that scenario with some facts. Throw some chicken in the sink. Do what you need to support that theory.
A tough case, and the jury has it now. Day 2 in the trial of a Florida man accused of killing his family after he stole their money and sent it to a Bulgarian webcam model. 29-year-old Grant Amato was accused of sending the woman about $200,000 from his mother Margaret, his father Chad, and his brother Cody, so that she would keep talking to him. When his parents intervened and tried to shut down the so-called relationship, prosecutors say he murdered his family and then tried to cash in their life insurance policies. Prosecutors say the webcam woman, known only as Sylvia, was the defendant's obsession. No one even knows if Sylvia is her real name. The family gave the defendant a written ultimatum about his activities with Sylvia, as the defendant's brother testified today.
It looks like Grant chose to live at home. He understood that the family would not cover or pay any current remaining future debts, etc. Some rules are no post-midnight internet use, no more all-nighters online, limited TV, install a new AT&T modem for logging, wireless, and hard traffic use. It says that he terminated his current phone and set him up with a new phone that I guess didn't have data or the ability to go on the internet. Some responsibilities where he had to get a job. He had some debts that he had to take care of. No savings. He owed the family some money, owed the family an apology. It states that it informed Grant that they had reached out to this woman to let them know, or to let her know some of the things that Grant had been saying weren't 100% true, and that he wasn't allowed to communicate with her anymore based off of those lies. It's very detailed.
That was the ultimatum. Brother Jason Amato went on to testify about accusing Grant Amato of killing their family shortly after the shootings.
Your brother initially denied any type of responsibility for hurting your family. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
During the course of the conversation, were there times where you indirectly and then at one point directly accuse him of killing your family?
Yes, I did go into meeting my brother, just trying to find out what happened to my family, and he was the last one that I knew was there. So I'm sure some of my questions or statements were accusatory.
When you would, and it's on video, and the jury's already seen it, when you would directly or indirectly accuse him of your family's death, what was his response?
I just remember him mostly being silent and just saying he understood how I felt. If you're asking if he denied any of my accusations, I only remember him saying he didn't have anything to do with it when I first walked in.
Authorities recovered a note from a hotel room apparently written by the defendant himself. Here, a crime scene analyst reads what he found.
I miss being at home already, and it's only been one day since I was kicked out by Dad. Cody said he'd take care of it, but there is nothing he could do about this. I miss the house and comfort, but the atmosphere had been getting worse and worse. Cody sounded pretty sad, and I told him that it's over at the house. We had a good 29 years, and I wish it could work out. Looks like I finally have to live on my own, ... Sadly, Cody is still helping me by giving me his debit until I can get settled. Oh, and the interview went well today. Oh, and no phone service because Dad canceled it. Parentheses, tough days. And then dated January 25th, 2019.
Earlier in the case, I should say, a crime scene analyst testified that she believed the body of victim Chad Amato had been moved.
When I first saw Chad's body in the kitchen, I asked the investigators if he had been moved. It was my instinct that he was not in the correct position or in the position that he had died in. Based on my training and experience, his taking in the entire crime scene, the blood patterns, the movement in the blood in the kitchen, it seemed that he was not in the same positioning as he would have been at the time he died.
Theory here is that the defendant moved his dead brother's body to make his dead brother appear at fault, and testimony in this case pushes now into next week. Still ahead tonight, here on The Debrief, the case of a Florida college student accused of murder. Roommates testify that she asked them to lie about her whereabouts. Now she's claiming self-defense and insanity in the killings. We break down that testimony in just a moment. Let's head now to the trial of a Florida woman who says voices in her head led her to kill her mother and her stepfather. Nicole Nachtman is raising an insanity defense involving schizophrenia. She's also raising battered child syndrome as self-defense, saying she was beaten and finally snapped back. Nachtman confessed she drove home from Florida State University, shot both of the victims, and then drove back. The state says Nachtman set a trap for her mother, Miriam, using her stepfather, Robert's email address. Let's listen to two police officers who arrived at the scene to find the victims' bodies.
So I parked outside the cul-de-sac, and immediately upon looking in the cul-de-sac, I saw a white female, excuse me, white female body laying in the driveway of 14108 Fensbury Drive.
Did you see anything else around the female?
No, there was nothing, no one moving. It was kind of eerie. The cul-de-sac has a pretty decent lighting for the area. There's a couple street lights around there, so it was pretty well illuminated.
Okay. And the female body that you've described, I believe you indicated you could see blood.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What position was the body in?
The body was towards the end of the driveway. The head, upper body of the area was closer to the roadway itself, while the feet were pointed up towards the garage of the residence, towards closer up on the driveway itself.
Did you make attempts to determine if she was still alive or if you could do any life-saving measures?
I did. I put a glove on my right hand and I went to feel for a pulse on her neck, but was not able to feel for a pulse.
When I first arrived on scene, I did approach the female laying in the driveway. I did observe that she did have some sort of trauma based on the blood near her head. And the call initially came out as shots were fired, so I was looking for shell casings that could be in the area, which there were two located that I did locate near her feet, which were marked after that. And while I was doing that, that is when other deputies were going door to door, checking on the welfare of all the other neighbors. And that's when I learned that there was a door open, lights were on, and nobody was coming to the door that was directly to the right side of where the body was laying at.
The defendant's cousin described loaning the defendant money and then said he couldn't believe she actually shot her mother and stepfather.
She needed to borrow $100 for her dorm up in college.
Yes.
She had actually borrowed money from you one time before to fix a cell phone, so this wasn't super odd, correct?
Right.
She came to your house to get the money, correct?
Yes.
And she actually told you that she was supposed to sign up for her dorm room, but had forgotten or had, not done it and needed the money for the fee for the dorm, correct?
Yeah, there was something about not doing it in time, so it was a $100 fee, and she didn't have the money on her. The police, they started asking me a lot of questions about Nicole, and I felt like she was a suspect, so I told them that, I tried to tell them no, I didn't believe that would be her, so, it's not her way at all. So, I kind of try to tell them, no, I know that's not what happened. Basically trying to eliminate her from being a suspect, whatever.
After you found out about the murders, did you ever talk to Nicole again?
I did, actually.
And while you were talking with her, what did she say to you?
Well, I told her that the sheriffs are showing up. They're going to come talk to her. They're going to bring her down. And she said they were already there. So since the sheriff's office was already there, I knew, I relaxed. That's fine.
All right, and so at that point you all terminated the conversation?
Yeah.
Is that the last time you ever talked to her?
Yes.
The defendant's college roommate testified that the defendant asked her to lie about her whereabouts and made up a strange story about her mother, the victim.
She had said that she wanted me to say that she had moved in the day before.
Okay, did she tell you who she wanted you to say that to?
I guess if anyone asked.
All right, did you find that strange?
I did. I didn't see anybody asking me that type of question, so I didn't think it was that important. She said to me that her mom was recently in a car accident of some sort. I'm not exactly sure where it happened, but I assumed that it was in her hometown, Tampa.
Anything else you can recall her telling you that specifically stands out in your mind?
I know she said that, I don't know if she was on the phone with like a PI or private investigator, but that's about all I remember her saying, that she was like in conversation with a PI. I don't know if they're investigating like the car accident or something else. I'm not exactly sure.
All right. How did she seem that time? Did she seem nervous, excited, happy, sad? Any particular emotion that you noticed?
She seemed rather normal. I mean, maybe like, because she was sweating, maybe she was nervous or something of the sort, but she did seem rather like, okay, she wasn't sad or happy or anything like that.
Okay, let's go back to the panel one final time on this particular case. Norman Williams, Michael Bryant. Norman, okay, this is a case involving mental health issues and an insanity defense, but when you have a defendant asking someone to lie, making up lies, driving up and then driving back when college was supposed to be starting, this looks more like premeditation to me than it looks like someone who didn't know right from wrong.
No, that's true. It does. It looks like more like planning, more like premeditation, and more like after the incident reaction to try to cover things up. It's not the function of a person that's acting because of a psychotic break or some other psych.
Michael Bryant, you're nodding in agreement here. This is going to be a tough case for the defendant, especially after that testimony from the roommate.
I know. Oh, wait a second. I'm hearing voices. Okay, yeah, my voices in my head are telling me to tell you that, you know, it's a tough defense. We know that. Insanity is tough, and it's classic. I'm hearing voices. That's one of the characteristics. But it's impossible objectively to prove somebody is or isn't hearing voices. So it's a tough climb. It's desperation. I think it smells of like an after-the-fact scheme.
I'll tell you what else is a problem, too. I think that it's a mistake on the defense's part to employ battered child syndrome and possibility of schizophrenia.
Should it just be the battered child syndrome then?
One or the other. You have to pick the best one, because with the mental disorder, that might lead to delusions and might lead an adult person to think in their mind that they were abused as a child. That's not uncommon. So you have to be careful, because if you say that, yes, my client was battered, and then there's absolutely no evidence of that, no paper trail, no DCFS complaints, you got a problem.
Norman Williams laying out the argument. Michael, thank you for being here. Norman, of course, as always, that's it for us. The weekend is next. We'll see you back here Monday starting at 9 with live trial coverage, back here at 5 on Monday with the debrief. Have a good one.